right, so next for our theories we have utilitarianism. It is like the ultimate consequentialist theory. So much so that many people, when they're referring to utilitarianism, actually call it consequentialism. Its two founders were Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill. And what they wanted was an ethical theory that was completely based on reason. So this is a pure reason-based theory. They wanted everyone to be able to access this, not just Christians or Jews or Muslims, or they didn't want it to be based on particular cultures or society. So this was supposed to be a universal theory that anyone who had access to a thinking mind could look at it and determine what was the best course of action. And it's kind of based off of this idea of utility, or you could say usefulness. In a lot of ways, a short version of this, you could simply put the greatest good for the greatest number. Greatest good for the greatest number. When they talk about good, they're really talking kind of about happiness or pleasure. So the greatest happiness or pleasure for the most people. It also has to do with this concept of efficacy. Anyone know what this word means? It's a great word. It's kind of like efficiency, but a little bit different. It kind of implies least desired input for greatest desired output. Okay. Least desired input for greatest desired output, efficacy. In a lot of ways in America, we think like this. We want what works best. Cost cheapest. And last longest. In fact, a lot of you probably even deciding on whether or not to come to this school, you were thinking these sorts of terms. You probably had several different colleges in mind. You sent out your applications, but you probably had your own like little list. And you would put like, okay, we have San Diego Christian College, we have my local community college, state colleges, maybe Biola, Point Loma, Cal Baptist, and you had these different colleges. And then you maybe just went down the checklist and you kind of gave it values based on what would give you the most bang for your buck. Or maybe there were other things. Maybe it wasn't just money that concerns you, but maybe you were interested in student-to-teacher ratio. Or maybe you were interested in location and climate. Or maybe you were interested in all sorts of things. Maybe you had friends that went here. So all those things could kind of play into what was going to be the best value for your money. As Americans, we use utilitarianism all the time. It's almost like the ideal ethical theory for a democracy, because it's basically the majority rules. The majority decides what is best. And so you can actually put things to a vote, and you go with what the majority wills or wants. That's kind of, there's like different types. There's act-based utilitarianism and rule-based utilitarianism. And we're going to kind of focus more on this idea of the majority, although we will talk about, are there certain things that utilitarians look for as values above just majority rule. Okay, if you got your books, well, I don't know what edition you got, but if you got one, you can, mine's on page 112 under Jeremy Bentham. It's talking about one of the ways in which you can go about determining what is best. And this is called hedonic calculus. This is kind of the highest math I know, hedonic calculus. And basically what we have are 7 steps we look at, and we can plug these in, and by using these, we can determine whether or not we want to engage in certain behaviors. And so the first one on our list is intensity. How intense will the pleasure be? Secondly, we have duration. How long will the pleasure last? Thirdly, we have certainty. How certain will the pleasure be? How near in place and time is that pleasure going to be? How fecund or fecundity is that pleasure? And that's just a fancy, it's kind of like a garden term, like soil, like the richness of the soil, fecund soil, like how much more pleasures will grow out of or result from this pleasure? Will it generate more pleasures after itself? 6 is purity. In other words, how free from pain is this pleasure? And lastly is extent. How many more people will receive pleasure or happiness from this action or activity? So this is hedonic calculus, and all you have to do is you kind of plug in whatever it is you're trying to decide for your ethical dilemma, and you just score it out. And you can do it like on a 10-point scale, or however you like. So does someone have a moral dilemma they'd like us to figure out for you? Of course not. Who would have an ethical dilemma, right? Do any of you have friends with an ethical dilemma that you'd like us to sort out for them? Yes.
Christians serving in the military.
Okay. Should a Christian serve in the military? All right. So basically, what we're going to have here is we're going to talk about the pro and the con of serving in the military. So let's start with intensity. What would be the benefit or the pleasure, the happiness of a Christian serving in the military? How intense would it be? On a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the most intense, like the most pleasurable experience he could have, like serving his country. What could be more pleasurable? Because by serving your country, you're serving God, right? God and country, isn't that what's on all the bumper stickers around here? No? Yes. 2, that's the most horrific thing a Christian could possibly do, and he'll find virtually no pleasure in it. That would get you a 0. Okay? So, between 1 and 10, how would you rate that? And I'm just going to start with 10 and just put up your hands. Everyone's got to vote, otherwise I can't plug it in. We're just going to vote. This is how it works. It's like a democracy, and we're going to decide. Now, you can keep your own. You can do utilitarianism as a group, or you can make individual decisions. So you could have your group list that we're doing as community, and then you could have your private list on the side. So you could use this for individual decisions or for group social decisions. And your individual one may not necessarily line up with the group one. Okay, so starting with 10, how many think it's a 10? 9? 8? 7? 6? 5? 4? 3? 2? Okay.